Big 12 football is officially back as UCF kicked off the Big 12 slate for the 2023 season last night. Now we look ahead to Friday and Saturday night in the Fun Conference and look at all the betting odds for each team in week one of the college football season. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I am RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on everything Big 12 betting all year long. I'm going to be giving you a weekly video on Friday with the latest Big 12 odds to go into the weekend so you can be most informed. And I know there's probably going to be some people that say, hey, RC, how are you credible right here? Well, I do work in the sports betting industry as well. And I do trends, I do social media, and really everything in between when it comes down to that. So if you're liking what you're seeing right here and you would like to see more Big 12 betting content on the channel, hit that subscribe button and let me know down in the comments below. But before we get into the Big 12 slate for week number one, you guys have to answer this question for me. What is your favorite bet to place in week one of the Big 12 season? Let me know down in the comments below. I'll be quite honest with you. I've got a parlay at the end of this that maybe some of y'all are going to like, maybe some of y'all weren't, just depending. But hey, let me know your favorite bet in week one of the Big 12 slate. All right, we're going to jump right into this because I think that there is some very interesting games when it comes down to what's going on this week in the Big 12. So we're going to start with Kansas and Missouri State. Now, they don't have a spread or total in this one. Typically, Vegas doesn't do that if it's out of hand in terms of, hey, there's a huge team differential and everything like that. But, hey, I think Jaylon Daniels has a great game at David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium there in Lawrence. That'll be on Friday night, actually, on Big 12 ESPN+. So I guess Big 12 now. But all these odds are coming from Caesars Sportsbook, so remember that. All right, going to start with Texas Tech at Wyoming. This is a Texas Tech channel after all. When it comes to the Saturday matchups in the Big 12, Texas Tech, as you can see, is favored by 14 points in this one with the total over-under at 50.5. Texas Tech struggled mightily last year on the road. This team is now older. It brings 18 starters back from their Texas Bowl win over Ole Miss. Wyoming struggles to pass the football, and their starting running back in a running-heavy offense is still working his way back from a knee injury. I think Texas Tech, the more that I think about this game, maybe it's just because it's getting closer and I'm more excited for college football season, the more I think Texas Tech really puts on an offensive show and really comes out defensively and really just creates a wall for this Cowboys offense to try and run through, and I'm not sure they can do it. I think the Cowboys have a solid team, but Texas Tech is far superior in virtually every aspect when it comes to each position group. So we'll talk about Texas Tech and Wyoming in this one. I'm okay with taking the points or the total over-under, and one of those will actually be in the parlay of the week later on. Speaking of the parlay of the week, one of these two teams will be in it as well. Colorado at number 17, TCU, and one of the most highly anticipated games of the weekend, Coach Prime versus the national runner-ups. I think Colorado will be vastly improved from last season. It's hard not to be with some of the players that Coach Prime has brought in. They're going to win more than one game. They won one game last year to Colorado. But I really like what Sonny Dykes did in terms of replacing guys like Max Duggan, Steve Oliva on the offensive line, not to mention first-round wide receiver Quentin Johnston as well. So I really like the Horned Frogs this year. I think they're maybe a little tad underrated. I didn't expect them to be 17, so maybe I'm wrong. And they're perfectly rated. But I really like the Horned Frogs in this one to cover that 20.5, even though it's quite a big number. Next up, Arkansas State at number 20, Oklahoma, at Memorial Stadium in Norman, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is 35.5-point favorites in this one, a total of 58 in terms of the over-under. And these are my thoughts. It's very simple. I will not keep you long when it comes to this game. Boomer, Sooner, give me the over 58. In fact, I think Oklahoma may score that many by themselves. I really like what that offense has this year in Norman. All right, so a few games here that don't have any odds. Northern Iowa, Iowa State makes sense. They don't really know everything going on right now in terms of who's playing for Iowa State and what to expect because they had more oars on their depth chart than I have ever seen before. But hey, that's what happens when there's a little bit of a scandal when it comes to the betting scene in terms of some of the players that were formerly on that team. Rice and Texas, they've got Texas as big-time favorites in this one, as they should be. Cincinnati, the same thing against Eastern Kentucky, and not to mention Kansas State against Southeast Missouri State up in Manhattan as big-time favorites as well. I will say I do think Will Howard throws for 5+ touchdowns in that game, but I love Will Howard, so whatever. Take my opinion with a grain of salt on that. When it comes down to it, we move on to Texas State at Baylor. It's going to be 100 degrees in Waco. Baylor is 28-point favorite, so 4 touchdowns. The total over-under is set at 60.5. Listen, I'm a big Dave Aranda guy, I really like Dave Aranda as a head coach. And the Bears have something to prove this year. Remember this time last year where Baylor was ranked? They were a top 10 team in the country before they went on to go lose in Provo to BYU in week number 2. I think Baylor handles business early and often against the Bobcats, and I think the Bears and Richard Reese just run all over them. And I think they actually do cover that 28, even though I think you could go either way. I think they cover the 28, but if you're feeling a little bit better about just total points, I think 60 is not bad either. We move on. UTSA at Houston. UTSA is the favorites heading to H-Town. It is going to be hot and humid, 98 degrees there in Houston. Remember, Donovan Smith is now the quarterback for the Cougars down there in H-Town, and UTSA, 2-point favorites, total over under of 60. And I'll be upfront and honest with you guys. I want nothing to do with this game. I want nothing to do with it because, truthfully, I have no idea which way to go. Like, if you made me pick, I'd probably pick UTSA, but I don't feel good about it. It's like I don't even know, like a 50.5 to a 49.5 to me. I just kind of want to stay away from this game. But I do think it's going to be one that I'm going to be interested to watch because I do want to see how Donovan Smith looks, and I want to see how UTSA looks against now a Power 5 school in the Houston Cougars. All right. Central Arkansas at Oklahoma State. No line in that one either when it comes to the spread. No total either in that one. That'll be played at Boone Pickens Stadium up in Stillwater. I'm very interested to see Oklahoma State from the standpoint of I think they're getting crapped on a little bit too much from how much they lost. Remember, they lost Spencer Sanders. He's now at Ole Miss. They bring in Alan Bowman, who is probably going to be the starter, for the Cowboys. But I like what they did in the portal overall, even though they lost a lot of guys. And I think Mike Gundy's a really good coach. So when it comes down to it, obviously I think Oklahoma State beats Central Arkansas. But I also think that they could be a little bit better than people give them credit for throughout the year. All right. Moving on to West Virginia at number 7, Penn State. The Mountaineers have no shot. I think Penn State is really that good. They are one of those teams to me that could make the college football playoff if Drew Aller lives up to expectations. Okay, Penn State minus 20.5 up in University Park, Beaver Stadium. The total over-under for this one actually just dropped to 49.5. And maybe I'm just a West Virginia hater. Call me out in the comments if you want. I just don't see a scenario where the Nittany Lions just don't assert their dominance on both lines. I mean, you think about it, they've got a top 5, top 10 pick if we're given a little leeway on the offensive line at left tackle who came back. He would have been a top 5 pick last year, that's for sure. He comes back. Their whole line is much improved as well, both on the offense and defensive line for Penn State. And they get Drew Aller, who I think is the most talented quarterback they've had in a while there in Happy Valley. So for me, when you look at everything in terms of what's going on, I think Penn State just absolutely obliterates them through the run game and just asserts their dominance early and often against the Mountaineers on national television on NBC. So we'll be talking about them in the parlay of the week as well here in just a second. Then you've got Sam Houston headed out to Provo to play BYU. BYU is 20-point favorites with a total over-under of 46.5. Give me BYU. BYU is just really good at home, and I think they're going to cover that minus 20. against Sam Houston out there in Provo. Provo is one of the hardest places to play in the country. Just simple and plain. It's absolutely ridiculous out there. All right, let's talk about my parlay of the week. Again, all of these odds come from Caesars Sportsbook. I've got Penn State minus 20.5 at minus 110 over on Caesars. And then Texas Tech at Wyoming over 50.5 total points at minus 110. And to get it basically right at plus 300, I added the TCU money line, which is at minus 1,100. So not much juice there, but it did get a little closer to plus 300, and it ended up being at plus 298. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below in terms of what is your favorite bet for week 1 in the Big 12. College football is back, and I could not be more excited, just like you guys. And if you want to stay in the know on Big 12 betting all year long, every Friday on this channel, I will be releasing the best bets of the week for the Big 12 each and every week, going over odds, spreads, what's new in terms of the rosters, and so much more. So if you want to stay in the know, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button to stay in the know right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.